Okay, in this video, National 5 level maths, I'm going to show you how to find the roots of a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. We use the quadratic formula when we can't factorise. If you've watched the previous videos, then we were solving this type of equation or finding the roots by factorising. But not everyone factorises, and when it doesn't factorise, we have to use the quadratic formula. Now the quadratic formula is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now that might look quite daunting to you, but it's actually very easy to use. You just substitute in and it churns out values. And remember, what is it we're finding when we talk about roots? Well, any quadratic equation or function has this type of style. It either has a smiley face, that's when the a is positive, i.e. when a is greater than 0, or it has a sad face, and the sad face being when a is less than 0. So that's the only two basic shapes you can get for a quadratic. Any quadratic of this form will either give you a happy face or a sad type face. So the roots are when it crosses the x-axis. So that's what we're finding when we say we're finding the roots. So it's when it crosses the x-axis. So let's look at an example on how to do that. So I've got this quadratic x squared plus 3x minus 3 equal to 0. And the question is, where does this quadratic cross the x-axis? What points does it cross the x-axis? Well, if you just take my word for it, it doesn't factorise. Therefore, we have to use this formula here. Now, the a that we're talking about in the equation is this a. The b is the middle term, and the c is the end value. So it's always a good idea just to document them. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to 3, and c is equal to minus 3. That's from the general case up here, just comparing the coefficients. Coefficients are the numbers before each of the x terms. So, always a good idea to work out b squared minus 4ac. I just do that separately, and that means when we're writing down the formula we can just put a value in for that wee bit. So my b is 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3. So that's going to be 9 plus 12 is equal to 21. Now, just a wee point for you. If you're working this out and you get a negative value, then you've made a mistake. Right? You can't get a negative value for b squared minus 4ac for it to have roots, because you can't take the negative of a square root. You can't take a square root of a negative, sorry. You can't take a square root of a negative. You get an error in your calculator. So if you're getting an error in your calculator, it's usually because of this point here, because you've worked this out, it's got a negative value. So, next wee step we do, is we just plug in our numbers into this big formula here. So x is going to be equal to, now minus b, it says, well, b is 3, so it's going to be minus 3, plus or minus the square root. Well, we just worked out the b squared minus 4ac, that's 21, all over 2a, that's 2 times 1. So, our two roots for this quadratic is minus 3 plus square root of 21 over 2, and my other root will be minus 3 minus 21 over 2. Now, in the exam, they normally say give your value for the roots to 1 decimal place. So, if they ask you that, then you've got to show the unrounded value before you give it to 1 decimal place. So, working that out in a calculator, you get 0.79, and the second one you'll get negative 3.79. But if we do it to 1 decimal place, as it normally says in the exam, that'd be 0.8, and this one here would be negative 3.8. Okay, and that's your two roots. Okay, so it crosses x-axis at 0.8 and negative 3.8. And remember, in the exam, one decimal place, show at least 2 or 3 decimal places before you round. And that's all you do. I'll leave that one there just now, and we'll do another one. Now I'm only going to do one more because they're all done exactly the same way. So if you can do one, you can do them all. So let's look at another one. Let's go for 5x squared minus 9x plus 3 equal to 0. So where does that quadratic cut the x-axis? Another way of saying that, find the roots for that quadratic. Well, my a this time is 5, my b is negative 9, so we've got to be careful there, negative 9 this time, and c is 3. Work out b squared minus 4ac, so working that out, well that's going to be negative 9 squared. Now negative 9 squared, you've got to be careful when you put that in your calculator, make sure you've got brackets. If you don't have brackets, you'll probably get a wrong answer. You probably get an answer of negative 81 there when the actual answer is 81. Remember the brackets for your calculator. So working that through, that gives me 81 minus 60. So that gives me 21 again. Same one is over there, that's just by chance. So that's my b squared minus 4ac worked out. So let's shove it all into the quadratic formula. So minus b, so minus b, b is minus 9, but it's minus b, so that's going to be a positive 9, plus or minus the 21 that we just worked out there, all over 2a, well a is 5, so that's going to be 10 this time. So one of my roots is going to be 9 plus 21, root 21 over 10, and my other one is going to be, second root is going to be 9 minus root 21 over 10. So again, remember, imagine it's exam, one decimal place, you must write it to at least 2 or 3 decimal places. So that one works out to be 1.358, and the second root turns out to be 0.441. And if we put it to one decimal place, this will be 1.4, and the second root will be 0.4. So there's my two roots. Okay, and that's how you find the roots of a quadratic equation when you can't factorise. Or that's when you find where this function crosses the x-axis. Okay. If you want any more practice on this, go to mastervision.com, look under quadratics at National 5 level, and you'll see there's plenty of wee sheets for you to practice this.